Welcome, Ian. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, I thought we'd start off the podcast. I always like to ask this question first. You know, I would say success is so important, but what is success to you?
Success. It's that thing we're always trying to grasp. Success is sometimes just getting to the end of the day and feeling like you've achieved something. Success in the long run, maybe we start out with some ambitions at the start of our life, and we try to we're trying to head along that path to get to that point, but maybe we never reach them. I think one needs to sort of continually reassess what success means to you, and it does mean different things at different times in your life, perhaps. What success is when you're a young person is probably different to what I would say it is now. For me now, I'm in my mid-50s, so I've had a good part of my working life. I've hopefully got a pretty good part of it still to go. But I think now success is finishing the job that I started to do 15 years ago. And by finishing it, I mean probably, hopefully exiting that business in the next few years' time, and it to have been that business to continue after I left it. That would be really important to me. And once that's happened, I think whatever I try to do after that, my success will be based around what I personally want to achieve. I don't think it will necessarily be from a financial perspective. I think a lot of people think that success and finance or financial reward is sort of go hand in hand together, but of course it can. As we all know, success can be self-satisfaction, it can be doing good, it can be making a difference, all of these things. So jumping ahead to a few years' time, if I'm not still on the current journey, then I'll hopefully be making a small difference with the time that I've got left in my working life, whatever that means. I don't quite know what that is just yet.
I actually think that's a really interesting insight there. You've kind of highlighted that success can change over time, what it means to you.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. I mean, I speak to a lot of young people, and it seems like success is about some financial goal, and I don't know when that changes. I mean, when I was younger, I was like that. Were you like that when you were younger?
Actually, probably not. No, I think initially I had a passion when I was younger. I had a passion, and it was the arts world, and I threw myself into that. And for me, the satisfaction I got through being around artists, theatre practitioners, choreographers, and all that sort of thing was more than enough reward. I didn't need the financial reward, and to be honest, I was working in a sector where financial reward wasn't part and parcel of it, unless you went into the commercial side. It's probably slightly different now, but this is back in the early 80s when we were the arts world in this country was predominantly government subsidised. So the pot of money was a fairly small pot of money, and the pot of money was about making the product, and the product was a piece of work. So yeah, it was probably, I wasn't so driven around money in my youth. I still don't think I'm that still driven around money. I want to be comfortable. I want to have a certain lifestyle. The current business that I work in, I think it hasn't been a particularly profitable business. So financial reward for me, if that's what it'd been about, I'd have given this particular journey that I'm on, probably a long time ago. I should have given it up a long time ago if the money side was important. So, yes, success, financial success, different things. Yeah.
Again, I find that fascinating because I come from a different angle. I mean, I left home at 15 and had to survive, had to eat, so money became an important part of like survival.
Yeah.
Do you think your upbringing had something to do with this ability to move aside the need for or drive around money?
I needed to earn a living, obviously. I needed work. So I've always been in work. I've always had a job. And no, I come from a very normal background. My parents were both teachers.
So there's a profession that people do not for the money as well.
Completely,
right? So you definitely picked up something there from
possibly,
the parents.
yeah. Although I certainly knew I never wanted to be a teacher, having lived with them, being brought up by them. So, yeah, go back a second. What was
So the entrepreneurial piece, though, I mean,
yeah.
it's quite a big jump.
That's a big jump. It was. I think that was rallying against the idea that I'd worked in a subsidised sector for maybe 15, 16, 17 years of my life, where you applied for a grant, or you're on a 3-year grant basis, and every year you'd send your application in and you'd get your money, and you'd sort of get on and create your work. You also look for sponsorship and things like that. I did a sponsorship deal with Saab back in the 80s for a company I was working with, which involved them giving us, I think it was 3 brand new Saabs to go on the road with and work with these cars in a performance environment. So you have to be entrepreneurial within the arts sector.
Of course. Bit of a hustle there.
Yeah, and actually the last job I had in the arts sector certainly required that, because the company wasn't funded. It had a history of receiving funds, and it stopped receiving funds, government funds, and we had to find another way. And we came across a building in the East End of London, and it was owned by the London Development Corporation. This is back again in the 80s, when the whole Canary Wharf thing was just coming up from the ground, and it was an old power station. And we found it, and we put on a piece of work there, and we started discussing whether we could obtain the building from the corporation. It had an arts remit, and so we started that negotiation and eventually got it, but we didn't have any money to do it. So what it did have, it had a parcel of land at the back of it, so we got planning permission to build a block of 20 flats on it, and suddenly we had an asset in addition to the building itself that we could potentially sell. And that, whatever it was, £1 million at the time, which seemed like a huge amount of money, allowed us to renovate and restore the building and to open it. So so that entrepreneurial, so that probably started there. But I got a little bit fed up of still working within the confines of that sort of that subsidised, what was essentially a subsidised sector. And I thought, okay, I want to try to create something myself that can stand up on its own 2 feet. And I knew that probably wouldn't exist within the arts world. So you have to go into the commercial world, and that's where the current journey started.
So you left the arts organisation you were with, and
yes.
you started Melrose Morgan.
Yeah, about a year later.
Right. Okay.
So
you had a year where were you planning what you wanted to do, or?
Yeah. It was a year when I suppose that I got to a point within that particular. I'd done 7 years there. I'd got to a point where it's like, actually, I need to do something for myself now, and I stopped working, and I managed to survive for a year without having any proper employment. I did a bit of travelling, you go off and find yourself, all those sort of things. Didn't really know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to do something, but wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I went off on this little journey, thinking I'd find out what I would want to do. Came back, and probably a year or so after we probably made our first offer on our first site for Melrose Morgan, and it was probably about another 9 months before we actually opened the business in another site, because that first site didn't work out.
Where was the first site?
The first site was in Columbia Road in East London.
Okay.
And probably wouldn't have been the right site, but when you're young and eager and like that,
of course, when your site comes second, wanting to get the business alive.
You just want to get it.
So what was the second site? Where did you actually open up first?
Well, the first site was in. First site we didn't open was Columbia Road. Then we saw another site in St John Street, again over in Farringdon Way. And then Nick, my partner, was in the process of selling his business. He was a commercial, he was an agent for commercial photographers, and he'd sort of done the deal, he was signing, went out for a celebratory drink, and then he went to a pub in Primrose Hill with the new team, walked out, and opposite the pub was an empty shop unit, and said to let sign the wind, and he said, I think I found our shop.
Wow.
That was that.
So did you come up with the idea together? How did the idea become a reality?
It was probably quite a long process over a number of years that then sort of crystallised over a 12-month period. Yeah, it was together very much. He had a food background, I had a food background partly within the arts world. I'd opened a restaurant in the big building in East London, an 80-cover restaurant. This was the time when the British food movement was just starting to really sort of change gear, and seasonality, provenance, organic, all of those things were suddenly becoming at the forefront of a certain market's mind, I'd say. So yeah, we did create the idea together, although originally it was probably more around being a restaurant, and then we decided that actually we didn't want to work till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We get to a certain point in our lives, we're in the early 40s. I know, let's open a shop. It's in retail. It would be so much easier.
Oh yes.
So, and then we started on the journey 15 years ago. Then we opened a second site in 2010 in Hampstead, again very close to where we are, our original site, and we still exist there today.
Mm-hmm. Did you, when you were coming up with the idea, did you have it like crystal clear when you launched, or was it, okay, I've got an idea, let's open it and evolve it over time? Which way did you go?
No, I think it was crystal clear at the time. However, any business naturally evolves, and in 15 years it evolves a lot. I'm not sure there are many businesses that don't evolve over that period of time, and particularly in the food world. I mean, the changes that have happened again, as I say, in the food world, it's sort of meteoric. We've got celebrity chefs, we've got restaurants opening and closing, and food courts opening and closing, and different styles of food, different operators. It's a big field now.
Totally, yeah. And I always preach to people about how good it can be to have a co-founder. And of course it comes with its challenges too, because you can have a lot of differences of opinions. What's your experience? 15 years you've been working together.
Yeah, and we married 2 years ago as well.
Right, wow. So you worked and lived together.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
I think I've actually had a similar experience.
Yeah,
I worked for 10 years with my partner.
Yeah.
But I have my opinion on it. Well, how do you see it?
I think that I don't want to preempt your question, but I know that you've asked me what was your lucky break, and I think my lucky break was probably meeting Nick, because in finding, and this came later in our relationship, but in finding someone that you can work with, that has the same aspirations as you, that has the same ethos as you, that is willing to stand by you in a work environment or a business environment, no matter what, that's fairly rare, and be your friend and partner through all of that away from work is fairly rare, I think. So that's my lucky break.
I think that's a wonderful lucky break. Do you think, how hard is it to separate life and work, or is it don't separate it? What would the advice be?
You learn how to do it. You can't. I think initially, if that's how you begin a business, or partway through a business you join it with your partner and they become part of the business. It's challenging to begin with. Naturally, you have to learn how to operate, how to respect each other. I think respect is the biggest thing. Respecting each other when you're together, but also respecting each other when you're with your work colleagues as well.
That's true.
That's a really, really, really important part. And there have been times when I've not achieved that, and probably likewise for Nick. But that is the one thing that you've got to maintain that respect.
I always say to people, because like you, I work with my partner, you also learn so much about your partner by working with them. I think when you work with someone, it's almost the real person is there often, or at least a certain
it's warts and all.
Moral code, for example, comes up. You really find out how someone really is when it comes down to money and paying a bill or not, for example. I was always in awe of my partner when she'd be like, we've got to pay our people, we've got to make sure we pay our suppliers, and we'll be paid last. And that was always her ethos, and I learned what a good person she was by working that way. I don't know, the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that you do understand each other more and more as each day goes by, but also if you're going into business with your partner, then you've got that other person's got to have certain gifts or talents or skills that you don't have, and to marry those up, it doesn't always work like that, I'm sure, but Nick has a certain skill set that I don't have, and I've got a certain skill set that he doesn't have.
Right. Actually, I think that's a really good point too. If anyone listening today is thinking of starting a business with their partner, I think the thing I've noticed for myself, and it sounds like you had a similar experience, is try to have different areas that you're managing, so you can advise each other on each other's areas, but you also have your own area in which to operate in and be free to operate in.
And Nick is a very creative person. I like to think that I'm a relatively creative person, but he's given me the scope to look after a certain area of business which is creative. He's still got his area which he could be creative within, but again, it's allowing each other to grow and shine, I suppose, in the areas that they want to, or feel that they can do something. Two of you can't have two marketeers,
unless you've got a marketing business, maybe. But separate clients, perhaps.
Sure.
But we're working directly.
Where your function is purely the same thing. If you were both, you can't have two cooks in the kitchen. Nick's the cook, I'm not the cook. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually know you got married 2 years ago. So congratulations. Well, you mentioned there the good luck. But what about bad luck? Do you feel there's been?
See, luck is a funny word, and if anyone says, "Oh, luck," to me, I say, "Oh, I've been fortunate, I've been unfortunate." Luck seems to me something that is completely out of your control. And I, maybe I'm a control freak and like to think that I've got everything under control. Of course, we don't always have everything under control. So bad luck. There's been the odd thing, but nothing terrible. Listen, we're not at the top of our game. We're not world leaders or anything like that. We've just sort of managed to survive and get through. And when a knock comes along, be it bad luck or your own fault, you just got to get on and get through it, I think.
It's interesting, isn't it? I've interviewed quite a lot of people. When I ask about bad luck, people don't like to find it hard to articulate what bad luck actually might mean. So, for example, I invested in the crowdfunding campaign that you did, which had a lot of interest. A lot of people really behind you. Customers in particular were really behind that campaign. But you didn't quite reach it. You were just short by a small amount, but you didn't quite reach it. And the rules of crowdfunding are you have to reach the full amount to get that, to make that kick in. Personally, I was disappointed. I was looking forward to being an investor in your business, but the that some might say is slightly bad luck, right?
Before we met, I had thought of that as an example of bad luck that we've the business has experienced, and then I look at it and think, well, actually, perhaps it was the wrong place, the wrong time. We're still going. We're still looking to grow, and we're doing it in another way. And maybe we rushed into that in what we thought was an opportunity too quickly. I think perhaps bad luck comes when you don't sort of plan far enough ahead, or you plan for all eventualities. And Yeah, sorry.
No, I think there's another element here that you're uncovering, which I find interesting. What I've noticed when interviewing entrepreneurs is that there seems to be a tendency to look at bad luck as almost like a learning experience. So something happened there, we can do better next time. So as opposed to, I think people, sometimes when people give up on the business or it doesn't work, I've had people say, oh, we started during a financial crisis, we were unlucky. As opposed to saying, we got through the financial crisis, this is how we adapted, we survived, but next time, when a financial crisis comes, we're going to do better. So I feel like entrepreneurs tend to reframe things and not almost accept that it was bad luck, more like my own fault or something I can do better next time.
I don't know if entrepreneurs are sort of so bloody minded that they almost think they're never going to fail anyway, so they will always find the solution to the problem that comes along.
Do you think entrepreneurs are born or bred?
Probably born. Probably.
But you think you were born an entrepreneur? Because you strike me as someone probably, first of all, artists can be entrepreneurs and art.
Oh, completely.
So I don't want to typecast, but I can see you doing very well in the creative scene. That isn't necessarily an entrepreneur's life, because my partner is creative and she actually hates the business side.
Right.
The financial cash flow management, for example, which entrepreneurs have to learn. That's no fun. I just want to make stuff, right? So that you come across as someone who likes to do stuff, make stuff, and the business side. But
I love the business. I love that business. I can.
Did you always love it?
I probably love it more now it's my own.
Right.
Because I love detail. And sort of having that tenacity just to keep looking through and sort of delving deeper into a spreadsheet or a plan or a product or whatever it is. So going back to your question of born or bred, I do think I had one very good teacher in my life, one of many, but and it's the woman I worked with back in the sort of late 90s who I opened this the arts building, the Waltham Hydraulic Power Station, and she probably taught me to be more ambitious than I was perhaps being. She stopped at nothing to get where she wanted to. That sounds a bit cruel, but she wanted to do something. She went for it.
Right. And you learned from that.
Yeah, I did a lot. Right. Yeah.
Because that's the teaching bit, isn't it? So maybe my theory is that you can definitely be taught, but maybe an element of it is it's like flipping a switch inside that brain that makes you think, I'm going to take risk, I'm going to follow through on something, I'm going to do something.
Yeah. But going back to my grandmother had a sweet shop.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of in your blood to be in that world.
But when we were coming up with this whole with Melrose Morgan, that never really even occurred to me. It was only I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm doing kind of what my grandmother was.
Subconscious is very powerful, isn't it? Maybe 0 to 7, you must have gone to that sweet shop quite a bit.
I spent many school holidays standing on a box behind the counter serving people.
Right. So that's kind of what I mean. You can be born not an entrepreneur, but over time be taught to be one by the environment, right? The kind of nurture versus nature kind of idea. But do you see you have one big break if you look back in your business life?
I'll go back to that thing I was saying. I think my big break was meeting Nick, my partner, and having someone to go on that journey, or the journey we're currently on with. I think that was a big break. When I think about, I'm sort of still waiting. If I'm looking at it from a purely sort of business perspective, I'm still waiting for that.
Right. You're surviving. You push through. You build a great business. You just wait for that moment.
It might happen. I can't guarantee it, but it'd be great if it does.
Oh, the person I just introduced you to could be an example of that. Just the right moment, the right person could change everything.
I think, meeting people it's the people that you meet is who you can be lucky. It's how one can be lucky. there's fortuitous moments when you're introduced, as you say, to someone you would never ever meet, but just because they're a friend of a friend of a friend and just happen to meet them on the street. Those I think people can create the luck rather than perhaps circumstances. Whether it's, I suppose what the obvious thing to think is, what big break did you have? Or when we a big contract fell on our desk, and we started to fly at that point. I think it's more about the people. The luck comes through the people that you're introduced to, or that you meet, that you then go on to work with or form relationships with.
Yeah, it's kind of the big break piece I find interesting, because in part I think it's also about having a lucky moment, and that's kind of part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, because I feel like in my life anyway there have been big lucky moments, and you do need that lucky moment. However, what's interesting, and maybe today's a good example, you've given up your time to come and talk on this podcast, to try and give information to other entrepreneurs, and when you've come here to the office today, you met someone who could be that big break. And the basic point I'm trying to make is if you give, you can receive, right? If you're kind,
and you've got to be open to receiving as well,
right?
Because I'm sure that there are other people
that's
out
true,
there.
And that's the other thing I think that's interesting. People don't notice the luck that's come their way, and they let it ride by, right?
Completely, yeah. No, one of the things that I think we have done, every opportunity that comes your way, particularly in those early days, you have to listen to them, look at them, and go, okay, is this the right thing? And I think when you're young in business, one of the mistakes we made probably was we said yes to everything, every opportunity that came along. Now we say yes to some and we say no to others, but those are all opportunities.
That's another entrepreneur's curse, if you ask me. You just kind of want to take every opportunity, but sometimes you do have to be selective,
one of my biggest mistakes. I shot myself in the foot many times. Nothing terrible happened, but it's more about you spreading yourself so thin or going off in so many different directions when you're not staying true to your original focus.
I think that's a good bit of insight there. And just finally, because I can talk to you forever, but we're already running over time, if you went back to your younger self and gave a bit of advice, what would it be?
Ask questions.
Right.
Ask questions. Ask questions. Ask questions of the people that are giving you advice, because I think that it's easy to accept advice from experts and believe that you're being told the best thing. You have to question every single thing, and I'm guilty of not doing that all the time, but I try to do it more and more and more now. Don't just assume that what someone's telling you because they are an expert in a certain field, whether it's a profession, whatever, it's necessarily always question it. You can pay hundreds of thousands of pounds to experts and actually dig down and go, actually, is that right?
That's another great thing out there for entrepreneurs to think about. Sometimes, especially if you're starting out, so many people have got so many opinions, and you've got to be careful that you don't get pulled left and right. So I know quite a few entrepreneurs that, when they're raising money, for example, they'll hear from that investor, you should do X, Y, and Z, and then they kind of get torn between what they actually want to do, what they feel is their purpose, and then what that investor wants, so they do it, so they get the investment. So it's getting that balance right between doing what you want to do and taking advice and learning, and also saying no and putting aside.
Completely. But as you said, always listen to that advice. Don't close yourself into advice. But once you have that advice, then question it.
Well, wonderful, Ian. Thank you so much. So I think to conclude today, some great insights. Listen to people's advice, but take it with a pinch of salt. I think always follow through with your passions and dreams. Ian's certainly doing that. 15 years he's been pushing forward his dream, and maybe defining success as just finishing the project you're on. I think Ian has great insights today. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure again. Thank you.
Bye.